Hello and welcome back to the AWS Launchpad here live from reInvent in Las Vegas. I'm Steve Bryan, I'm a technical evangelist on the AWS Developer Relations team. I'm joined by my guest host, John today, and our wonderful guest from the Sagemaker studio team. Can you both go ahead and introduce yourselves, please?
Sure. I'm Sumit. I'm a senior product manager for Amazon Sagemaker and would love to introduce you to Amazon Sagemaker Studio.
I'm Jonathan Dion, and I'm a technical evangelist, same team as Steve, and I'm from Canada. I'm representing today.
Representing, red,
yeah.
He has the red jacket on there.
Yeah.
Sumit, tell us about some of our viewers, they may not, they may be new to Sagemaker itself, so I think a good place to start is maybe just giving us a quick overview of what is the kind of goal of Amazon Sagemaker as a platform, and then we'll dive into the new announcements from this week following that.
Absolutely. So we built Sagemaker over 2 years back, and our goal was to just democratize machine learning and give it in the hands of every developer and data scientist out there. Sagemaker lets you quickly and easily build, train, and deploy models at scale. It comes with an automatic data labeling service that lets you quickly and accurately label your data. You also have a managed Jupyter Notebook environment where you can explore this data and play around and experiment with different models and algorithms. And once you are ready to train, you only need to just do a simple click, and Sagemaker takes care of like bringing up the cluster of machines, training your model, and tearing them down once the training is complete. And at the end, you can also deploy the model with a single click as well, and it just puts it behind like a production endpoint that's scalable, reliable, and secure. So everything taken care of end to end.
Brilliant. So this is Sagemaker is a platform for intelligent developers or data scientists that want to do machine learning without all the heavy lifting associated with running complex infrastructure, which is typically a steep learning curve that people typically have with running infrastructure.
Yep.
Great. So this week we made some pretty big announcements in the Sagemaker space. We enhanced the platform with something called Sagemaker Studio and a bunch of kind of sub-features. Do you want to give us a quick overview of what Studio is, and then we'll spend the next kind of 20 minutes or so diving into some of those features?
So Sagemaker Studio, we're pretty excited about bringing this up. This is a tool which has been built by ML developers for ML developers. It's the first IDE, first integrated development environment for machine learning that lets you build, train, tune, debug, deploy, and monitor your machine learning models. It improves your data scientist productivity and lets you take your model from experimental to production pretty quickly.
That's great. So what is the kind of key problem that is solved? What were customers asking for when we built Studio? What was the kind of reason for us making these enhancements? You know, with Sagemaker, tens of thousands of customers already using the platform, what were they asking for? Why do we feel the need to take this next step?
So the customers are telling us that machine learning workflow is pretty iterative, right? So even if you have to just train a model, you have to experiment with like tons of data, algorithm, and parameters, which results in like thousands of experiments, and you have to manage that whole iterative experimentation process. Similarly, when you deploy a model, you have to continue monitoring the quality of the model in production over time. So there are a lot of these iterative hoops that the customers have to always go through, and for that, they need to go through these tons of different tools and interfaces to manage all of that in addition to Sagemaker. So we wanted to solve that problem for our customers and give them a single unified web-based interface where they can do all of these tasks end to end within that unified interface.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, so which customer will be using that? Really, who is that for?
So it's for any data scientist or developer, and we have developed tooling for people with varying levels of expertise. And as we'll dive into the features, we'll see like it just addresses the people of all skill levels.
So data scientists normally uses Jupyter Notebooks. Is that what is being used right now?
Yes, so Studio comes with what we call a Sagemaker Studio Notebooks. It's a Jupyter Notebook. It's quick start, setup free. You simply log into this IDE using your SSO credentials, and once you are there, you can immediately spin up a notebook in seconds. No more compute instance to choose or set up. And once you're there, you can start writing code, and once you want to execute your code on a bigger instance, you can switch instances with a single click.
Awesome.
And we have also built collaboration in these notebooks, where our customers are telling us that it's not just useful to share the code. We also need to share all the runtime dependencies and libraries so the recipient can actually reproduce your analysis. And for that, we are giving you a one-click share in Sagemaker Studio Notebook, which will exactly do the same. It shares
That's
everything
experiments,
out.
right? Sagemaker experiments?
So it's the notebook. So when you share a notebook,
we'll get to experiments.
yeah. Along with the code, you can share all the libraries and dependencies that the code requires to reproduce your analysis and results. So it just takes that snapshot and shares it with the recipient through a link.
Okay, awesome.
So this sharing, you mentioned SSO. So for those that are used to using AWS, you can integrate this with their, federated identity with their on-premises or their enterprise identity systems or cloud-based identity systems.
Yeah. So once you go through the initial setup process and you have onboarded SSO, you never need to come to the console. You just get a link, and your data scientist can just log into the link, put in their SSO credentials, whatever they use regularly in their day-to-day job, and just access Studio over the web. And by the way, if you're not somebody who use SSO, you will still have the regular AWS IAM credential login mode as well.
Got it. So we can use IAM users if we're AWS friendly and we're using IAM today, but if we have a data science team, they don't need to worry about IAM, they don't need to worry about AWS consoles, they can just dive straight in through a custom SageMaker Studio console.
Yep.
That's great. So you mentioned notebooks a little bit there. Jonathan got ahead of himself there, experiments, but there's a few other things.
Yeah.
Can you take us through some of the other features that we added?
Sure. So once you're in the notebook, of course the first thing you start doing is you start exploring your data and start experimenting with different models and algorithms, right? And this experimentation process can really be iterative and can result in like hundreds and thousands of model training runs and model versions. And it makes it super difficult for you to track the evolution of your model over time. So SageMaker Experiments exactly solves this problem. Whenever you train a tune a model of SageMaker, it automatically tracks your input configurations, results, metrics, parameters. No additional coding is required from you. And the studio comes with a visual interface for you to just browse your experiments, compare your experiments, and quickly identify the best models.
Awesome.
So these are kind of packaged in a way that we can take them and we can share experiments as well. We mentioned sharing notebooks. Can we share an experiment and rerun it or play it back? So we change a parameter and play it back?
So if you share a notebook which has all the code required to run the experiment, yeah, you can rerun the experiment as well. But the idea is, yes, we save everything for you, so you don't have to write any instrumentation code. Your colleague can come up to you and say, by the way, your training run looks really cool. I want to look at the parameters you use and incrementally build on top of that. So that kind of collaboration can be enabled using SageMaker Experiments.
Cool. Sounds really good. Yeah. So that's experiments. I know we've got a lot of stuff to cover, and we're going to get to a demo. So what's the next kind of feature of SageMaker Studio?
Experiment again, like when you're running an experiment, people typically tell us that debugging a model training run is very tedious. It's a bit of a dark art, like sometimes people tell us. So you first have to write like lots of instrumentation code, collects a lot of debugging data, and then you are lost looking through all that piles of dense debug data. We are solving that exact problem with the Amazon SageMaker debugger, which is integrated with the Studio. Okay. So this comes like pre-integrated with SageMaker framework containers. So when you run training on SageMaker, the debugger automatically collects all the debugging data from your deep learning models as they train. So it'll collect things like model weights, gradients, activation layers, inputs, outputs, everything, and then analyze this data at the back end to give you real-time feedback on the potential performance bottlenecks in your code and the ways to fix them.
So I don't need to turn this on?
It's automatically turned on for SageMaker containers.
Yeah, and I know the next question from customers is going to be, well, if it's automatically turned on, how much does it cost me?
Exactly. So debugger is available free of charge.
Fantastic.
There's no additional charge. You can just run debugger with SageMaker training for free.
That's brilliant. Awesome. So it's automatically enabled, you're automatically debugging your models, we're just removing that friction.
Yeah. So we have just developed tons of built-in rules which help you debug a lot of bottleneck conditions. If you really want to do any custom analysis, there's an additional capability that we launched called SageMaker Processing Jobs, which let you run scalable Spark jobs using SageMaker infrastructure, and you can run your own custom processing rule on all the debug data we collect. That data is available in your S3 bucket, so you can pull it using SDK and do your custom analysis. That processing job is charged in the same way as any other SageMaker compute is charged.
Machine learning is never ending. We're debugging our machine learning, and we're machine learning our debugging logs.
Exactly. Exactly.
Non-stop.
It's inception.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, I think we believe that with experimentation and debugging, people should be able to like converge in this model training group pretty fast and get down to the best model quickly. And then, of course, you have the best model, you deploy it, but the story doesn't end there, right? Like you get the model deployment going on, but then you realize the data in real world changes, and your models are turning stale, and they're giving inaccurate predictions. And that has been a trouble for our customers to kind of keep on constantly monitoring those models and make sure they're retraining them at the right schedule. So we are also putting another feature in SageMaker Studio called SageMaker Model Monitor that lets you automatically monitor your production endpoints.
Yeah.
Can you give an example of what that could be?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So say for example, you have a regression model for predicting housing prices. Mm-hmm. And one of the features in that model is the interest rates. And then Fed goes ahead and changes the mortgage interest rates. And now your models have turned stale, and they are predicting wrong housing prices. With Model Monitor, it will detect this deviation of interest rates in the data that's coming to the model compared to the training data baseline, and issue an alert directly to CloudWash. So you can go back and retrain and recalibrate your model against the latest interest rates. And
awesome.
Like with all the other features, this is also integrated with Studio, so you can go into the Studio and see those same alerts and the data visualizations to figure these drifts.
So this is like anomaly detection for your predictions, basically.
So it's like detecting anything which is going way off the trend, sort of, which is like an anomalous trend, And
got it.
yeah, and you can get an alert for that. Yep.
Yeah. And how do you set those thresholds that you want to be alerted? Is there a default parameter, or is that something you can customize?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are trying to automate as much of this as possible. So before you go ahead to set up the monitoring, you can specify which data you want to treat as a baseline.
Yeah.
And SageMaker Model Monitor will automatically look at the data and compute some key defining characteristics of the data and treat them as a baseline and set the possible thresholds for how much deviation would cause an alert. And you can always customize that. If you're not happy with the defaults, the APIs will let you just customize that, but we'll do a lot of things by default for you.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the goal, really, right?
Yeah.
Make it as easy as possible. Yeah.
Keep as much automation as possible. Yep.
Yeah. And model monitor enabled by default, or you have to enable? You have to set. You're saying you have to get it to look at your historic.
Yeah, it means you
your
can
data.
enable the model monitor on your endpoints, on your current endpoints, pretty easily. We have given the Python SDK functions that makes it super easy, like single line code just to enable model monitoring. Okay. And yeah, means even all the rules that we run behind the scenes to detect drifts, they are again for free. If you're hosting on SageMaker, you only pay for hosting. The model monitoring is available for free.
Awesome.
Similar to Debugger, you can customize model monitoring and run your own custom processing using SageMaker processing jobs, at which point you just pay for the compute of processing.
So it's like the endpoint is no more just a container is running in there and then just doing the authentication and that was it.
Yeah.
Now the model, we're doing monitoring on top of that now, so like that instance is getting busier and busier, right?
Yep. Yep.
Awesome.
So I think there's one more. Is there one more thing we want
Yes,
to talk about before we get to the demo? I know
absolutely.
We want to spend enough
yeah,
time
the
on
launch
demo,
announcements
but
don't just stop here.
yeah, this one's a big one, right?
This one's a big one. So we gave experiments and model monitoring and debugging everything, but you can actually just skip the lines completely and get from raw data to predictions directly with SageMaker Autopilot. So this is a new automated machine learning capability that we launched this year. That's coming with SageMaker Studio as well. And with Autopilot, you just need to bring in your raw data in a tabular form and tell us what column you want to predict. And Autopilot does all the hard work of extracting the features, identifying the appropriate algorithms, and then tuning their parameters to give you the best fitting model.
That's awesome.
And it pretty much works with like regression problems and classification problems, which covers like a wide variety of use cases for our customers, like fraud detection or churn predictions. So
Sounds like a black box though. Is that?
So that's where it's very different, and that's why it's called Autopilot.
That sounds like a
because
loaded
it
question.
gives you control and visibility into your models, unlike many other automobile capabilities that are just totally like black boxes. So it's a pretty white box approach from SageMaker. So every step of the machine learning workflow that runs inside Autopilot is made available to you in the form of a notebook. So you can take that notebook, go through the source code, and gain full understanding of how your models are built from your data. Or if you're an expert, you can start dabbling with that notebook. Start modifying the parameters, tweak them, and maybe produce a better model.
Yeah, I think this is great because people like me who aren't machine learning experts can go and Autopilot can take care of everything for me.
Yep.
Or experts like yourself can maybe run Autopilot, but then dive a bit deeper and make some customizations. This is a tool for everybody, I think.
Absolutely.
I'm really, really looking forward to getting my hands on this.
Yep.
So we have about 6 or so minutes left. I know you've got a chance to show us the SageMaker Studio console and give us a walkthrough of one of your jobs. So if we can switch to the screen, we'll go through that now.
Cool. So this is the home screen of SageMaker Studio, and what you see here is the experiment management dashboard from SageMaker Experiments. As you can see, this screen is an extension of the Jupyter Lab interface, so many things are familiar to the developers already developing on Jupyter Lab. So on the left panel, you can browse all your resources, and in the central panel, you have your main work area where you can write code, run commands on the terminal, or open text scripts, whatever. Okay. So what you see on the experiment management screen is a bunch of experiments I ran. These are all customer churn prediction examples. We are trying to predict the probability of churn for a customer from a mobile phone operator company. And all I need to do is just write code here in the main work area, and it will automatically track experiments for me and all my trial runs. So you can navigate in your browser through all your experiments, all your trial runs, and you can see the training run associated with each trial. So that's it's a pretty structured workspace for navigating through your whole experimentation structure. And then you can also look at the parameters that we track for each of these experiments. For example, if you click on this, it opens up this view where you can see everything that SageMaker experiments track for you, like the metrics, the parameters, all the artifacts, like the input and output artifacts, and any other settings related to your AWS job. So everything is tracked for you automatically. If you're running a job on SageMaker, all of this information gets tracked, and this is available for you to visually explore. And you can this lets you quickly come back to your model if you're let's say, encountering an issue in production and you want to see what artifacts were used in creating this model. Just come to this models page, and you can see everything out there laid out for you.
Awesome.
So it's all automatically tracked. And then you can even compare, as I was saying, it lets you compare the experiments to quickly find the best model. For that, you
Do
can
a
just
diff on the experiments, basically.
yeah, so you can go here and simply, let's say, I want to just analyze this experiment. I can say, show me all trials, and it will just open up this beautiful tabular view for me, where each row is a trial run I ran, and then you can see all the information that we captured, including the metrics and the parameters, all laid out in the form of structured columns, so you can sort, filter, and kind of look at the best performing trial on the top. We call it like a leaderboard. And if you really want a deeper dive on this, and you're not just okay with the tabular one, and you want to see more data visualizations, you can like select multiple trials here, and simply say, okay, I want to really compare them and add more charts. So you can now you're into this workspace area, you can say add chart and choose from a different variety of options available for you to add new charts. So I can say, I want time series, and I want to compare at a 1 minute aggregation the different loss characteristics of each of these runs. So I can choose from this whole drop down of metrics and say, okay, let me compare the loss. And you get this chart automatically for you, which has traced the loss of each of those trial runs and compares them side by side in a visual way. And by the way, these visualizations are all real time. As your training runs progresses, these refresh, and you can compare them in real time and take
As you're running training, these are refreshing in front of you, so you can use them operationally as well.
Yep, exactly. And similarly, just with like Sagemaker experiments, you can also go and from here browse your endpoints. You can say, okay, for this endpoint, I want to see monitoring. So you just double click on an endpoint and you can see the monitoring results showing up here. By the way, it's just pulling all the metrics from CloudWatch and trying to show you a visualization of how the drifts are happening. So you can see this visual coming up where every visual is just tracking one feature and a characteristic of that feature. For example, age of a customer is a feature and it's tracking the average age. The blue line is the baseline from the training data set, and the red line is the current average age coming to the endpoint for prediction. So you can see if there is a significant drift between these two lines, you'll get an alert.
It's time to
trigger.
Yeah, you'll get an alert for that.
Alarm, brilliant.
And you can see all your monitoring runs which are running. One of them is right now in progress. They're all tracked here, and you can see the complete history of all the monitoring which is happening, and it can easily show you there are some violations happening because of which it's issuing an alert to you, so you can access it from here.
I really love the fact that everything is in that
Everything
one
is here,
console,
yeah.
right?
So I can-
Previously in the Sagemaker console, I was constantly clicking
Yeah.
in all of these little steps, but yeah.
So you can just go back and you can write your code here, and now you want to see the outcome of the impact of that on your experiment, you can quickly go back and see, oh, by the way, how are my experiments doing by the change of code I made? So everything just happens within the same unified interface. You don't have to switch between multiple different tools, so it improves your productivity a lot. And then finally, just to give you a quick snap of how the AutoML looks like, you can just create an experiment, give these few parameters, like input data and the target column name, create experiment, and automatically launches one for you. Here is one AutoML experiment which I created beforehand for you. Everything is tracked in Sagemaker experiments like it would be typically tagged for any of your experiments. AutoML is also tracked as well, and all the source code is available for you. You can look at the source code, it's pretty transparent, and it tells you exact every step that went in creating that model, right from featureization to the final model generation, and you can track the source code of every single step in this notebook.
That's brilliant. I think it's fantastic. Like you say, bringing everything to that one place for data scientists or developers is going to make it much easier for experienced data scientists, but also make it much easier for those that are curious about data science to really be able to visualize what they're doing and learn and iterate their skills and really get some great value from some of these tools without much deep data science or deep learning experience.
So as you can see, like all of our features are geared towards like bringing more transparency. Debugger gives you more transparency into your models, helps you explain your model better. Monitoring gives you more transparency into your predictions made by the model at the endpoint, and AutoML gives you more transparency in how you can generate a model from your raw data.
Yeah.
We are just taking the lid off the machine learning and exposing all the inner workings in a pretty simplified manner to developers. So it definitely improves a lot of transparency for the folks.
Cool, that's awesome. Well, we're just about out of time here. We'll share some links in the chat for those on Twitch where you can learn more about Sagemaker Studio. Thanks for joining us here on the Launchpad, and we'll be back shortly with our final recap of AWS reInvent on the Launchpad today.